Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It is 7:07 on this very busy Wednesday morning in your nation's capital. Thanks for tuning in to the only place where you can start your day the right way with news, information, analysis, and hopefully a smile, hopefully a laugh even if we do it right. Coming up at 7:35, Julie Kelly. And at 8:35, John Andrasik, Five for Fighting. He's fresh off of a concert he gave in Israel. We'll talk about how he's using his skills and talents as a musician and singer-songwriter to really help out the good guys around the planet. That's coming up. I'm Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlot.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julie. And joining us is a good guy as well. He's the president of the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts. Dr. Roberts, thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Larry and Julie. It's always a pleasure.
I want to get to what's going on our college campuses and sort of draw from your experience in the world of academia. But first, you were one of the leading outspoken voices against further funding of the Ukraine war effort without an actual plan or strategy that articulates America's interest in this project. And, of course, as you know, yesterday the Senate overwhelmingly voted it, along with, again, it's always in these giant, massive bills, Dr. Roberts, with Israel funding and with Taiwan protection. And they even threw TikTok in there to sort of, twist everyone's arms. We still have never gotten one clean bill that just says up or down, yes or no, Ukraine funding. Are you for it or against it? But I'd love your reaction on this development.
Well, two reactions. The first is the Speaker of the House, who is a good man, even to this moment, promised us that's what we would get, which is an up or down vote on Ukraine and all these other things. That's not what this was. And so we still have never had a national conversation about why we're going to send $200 billion to Ukraine, as much as we want them to win, as much as we hate Putin and the Russian army. And we need to have that conversation because we're $35 trillion in debt. But the second thing, Larry, about how this affects the conservative movement moving forward, I can't think of a time in my career, perhaps even in my lifetime, when Republicans in Washington were so out of step with where the conservative base is. And I'll just make you a prediction. They're going to rue the day, the Republicans who voted for this package, they will rue the day that they did so, because the time that I spend with real Americans outside the Imperial City, they are furious about this bill.
Yeah, and they're furious also because while we seem to be securing other countries and helping other countries, we are ignoring our southern border. How do you think these members are going to face their constituents when they've continued to do nothing on the border? What will they say to them?
Well, what they're going to say to them, Julie, is that they actually voted for something that was border security, but the three of us know, and your audience, I think, knows, none of that was a really sufficient border security provision. And so that's what they're going to say. But the good news here, and I mentioned this to people who might be a little discouraged today after this vote, is that you can always trust the American people to get it right. They know what the truth is in spite of all of the nonsense in D.C. And I guess just the friendly reminder that I pass along to other conservatives who are in Congress and voted the wrong way on this one. I don't mean this personally, but the game's up, and I can guarantee you that the Heritage Foundation and Heritage Action will be reminding people of the game being up this fall.
We're speaking with Kevin Roberts. He is the president of Heritage Foundation, and I know, Dr. Roberts, that you joined me with great admiration of Governor Scott Walker and the work he does with Young America's Foundation. And when we see what's being developed on college campuses right now, it reminds us how important and vital his work is with young people, high school students, college students. You've been in that world. What insight can you provide in terms of what has gone so terribly wrong at our universities as we see the latest scenes out of Columbia and other colleges?
Well, gosh, Larry, as you know, it's a world I know all too well as an early American historian, having been a history professor at a major university in the Southwest, but also having led a newer institution, Wyoming Catholic College, which was founded, frankly, to offset all of these trends that are very troubling. We sit at a time when hate crimes against Jewish Americans are at a 30-year high. And as much of a tragedy as that is, and obviously it is, and we have to stop that, the point that I want to make even beyond that is that's also an icon for how terrible our education system is, to the point that you make and to the point that that Governor Walker and our friends at Young America's Foundation do such a good job of. All of that to say this. What has happened in these institutions over the last 50 years is that common sense Americans, whether they be conservative or somewhere in the political center, have just assumed that these smart people running our colleges are somehow well-intentioned, and in fact they aren't. Most of them hate America. Most of them hate your radio show. They hate the Heritage Foundation. They hate common sense. And you cannot compromise with these people. You have to, in a figurative sense, go to war against these institutions and destroy those that are propagating this nonsense, or if there are some that are reformable, focus on those. But to sum up here, we really have to be focused on founding new institutions that displace these institutions that have simply run roughshod over common sense.
We also need to sue these institutions. What's going on College Camp Columbia in particular towards Jewish students is absolutely a violation of the law, and they need to be sued. Do you know of any organizations that are doing that? Do you know of any, students right now who are looking at lawsuits? Because I feel like until there's lawsuits, the change won't really happen. Until the universities are actually afraid of losing money, or there being some cost associated with what they're allowing to go on, there really won't be any changes.
You're so right, Julie. Let me just quickly say that the policy solution on this, and maybe we get the chance to do this in less than a year if the elections go well, is to defund these institutions from the federal government, right? Particularly given what's going on with the federal government. But to your question, the good news is, to inject some sunshine here, is that there are a lot of great organizations on the center right in the United States focusing on this, focusing on lawsuits. In addition to Heritage, Young America's Foundation, Turning Point, Claremont Institute. I mean, that's just a smattering. My former organization I led, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, has led the way with a couple of lawsuits. So that's the good news, is that we have built the ecosystem on the right to challenge these institutions. It's just that, unfortunately, tragically, and I really will say disgustingly, right here in the middle of Passover, our Jewish friends with kids and grandkids at these schools have to wake up in the United States of America in 2024 and worry about their safety. That ought to sicken every one of us in the United States.
And again, Dr. Roberts, I've heard you lament the fact. Listen, Heritage Foundation is about some fundamental principles and values and ideals and morals, frankly, that our nation was founded on, hence heritage. And there were some of those principles and values and morals that crossed party lines. It's not a Republican or Democrat thing, or it didn't used to be, to stand up and say this is wrong. But boy, you saw Joe Biden, the president and the leader of the Democratic Party, basically equivocate and throw down with Rashida Tlaib, saying, people don't understand the Palestinians the way I do.
Yeah, one of the things, maybe the greatest thing I lament about modern America, even though I am hopeful about our future, is what you just said, Larry, which is that some things, maybe even a lot of things, ought to transcend our partisan politics. And one of them ought to be that someone of any faith, but particularly one of the key faiths in the founding of this country, Judaism, ought to be able to go to any institution in this country and not only not be worried, but flourish. That's the real promise of America. And the fact that we don't do that is exemplified by what you said Joe Biden did with Rashida Tlaib, and I will say, as a serious Catholic, his making a sign of the sign of the cross at a pro-abortion event.
Yeah.
This is where we are. The left just doesn't care about the human person, as evidenced by what's going on at Columbia.
Yeah, we saw that. We haven't gotten to that story yet, but thank you for the preview of it. It was outrageous what he did yesterday. You'd almost hear the demons howling with delight when that happened. Dr. Roberts, all my Facebook photos popped up over the weekend, reminding me that it was a year ago when we had that great 50th anniversary celebration of the Heritage Foundation that you were in charge of. And I realized, everyone, 50 years. How about 51 years? 51 is huge. Happy anniversary. No one said anything, but happy anniversary, Heritage Foundation, 51 years. Well done.
Well, coming from you, my friend, that's a real honor, and thank you all every day, and I really do mean this, most of all as a great consumer daily of your show for what you and Julie do. I'm really proud to be your friend.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you, sir. Well, see, that's why we have him on, honestly.
I know.